Hey guys, coming back for the original Season 3, Episode 12, Dead Angels, and obviously looking forward to this episode. You guys know this season has been on fire, and this was another amazing episode. There were so many interesting things that happened in this episode. This, honestly, I think might be my favorite episode of the season. I'm not really sure. Next week's episode, though, I'm just going to say is going to be incredible. We'll get into that, but let's just get into this episode because there's obviously a lot to talk about. And we begin with Vincent. He's chanting and Cami talking to him. He says that she's cloaked, but Klaus is trying to track her. Cami says if Klaus wants the horse back, he has to give her back her dark objects. And Vincent says she stole the only thing in the world that can kill an original and says others will come for it. Now, I know there are a lot of people saying that this is a huge, just out of nowhere change for Cami, but I don't really see it that way. I mean, Cami is still doing things that is part of her family. Those dark objects are part of her family. Klaus took them. She wants them back. I mean, I feel like she just is more enforcing. She can just enforce more things because of this power that she has because she is a vampire. She didn't really have any control over Klaus before because of the fact that he was a vampire and she was immortal. She just didn't really have any control. But now that she is a vampire, she can have this control. She can, manipulate and persuade Klaus to do things that she really couldn't before. And I really feel that she's just really enjoying this power. And Cami sends Klaus a text. Vincent asks if she's sure. Davina asks what happened to Arion, and basically, Aya says that's what happens when you bargain with Elijah. He says he killed her because she knew the secrets. And Davina, as we know, is now a member of the Strix along with Aya, and the other witches come in. Aya says they will channel Arion and find the weapon in her head. Davina says it's dangerous and says if Elijah finds out, Aya interrupts and says Elijah is her sire and she can handle it. And she says she wants the weapon to protect her line. Aya comes out, finds Marcel there. She asks why she took Davina. Aya says that she's a former regent, not a kid, and that obviously, and Marcel just sees her as like a daughter. I mean, he's really always seen Davina that way as like he's been her mentor and she's been his protege, and he really doesn't want to see her let her go. But I like that Aya's telling him that she's a lot more powerful than you think she is, because she really is. I mean, she was shunned. I mean, really, she might basically. Marcel says he won't let her make Davina a puppet. Aya says she has to keep all of them alive, and he better get in line. It's clear that Marcel knows that Aya does not have a very good agenda with Davina. She probably plans on using her. She's going to probably, if it was between letting herself live and letting Davina live, she'll let herself live. I mean, that definitely is the kind of person that Aya is. And Klaus comes to the cemetery and sees Vincent. Klaus threatens him, but then steps over line, sees there's magic there. There's a barrier there. Cami says he should agree to the fair trade and not make things harder. And he calls her a traitor to his family. He says he thought that they were on intimate, basically intimate, and she says to give back her stuff that he took. Klaus sets down a briefcase and she says that that's a third of it, and asks what he and asks does he want a third of the white oak. And of course, Vincent advises him to finish this fast before other parties show up, and he walks off. And I like this conflict between these two. I like seeing them fight. I really do, because again, we've never really had this before, and I like they're really taking advantage of Cami being a vampire. There's just a lot more liberties and a lot more things you can do with her character that they couldn't do before, and it really makes it a lot more interesting. So Haley's with Elijah. He asks what the other plan is, and he says he's keeping Aya distracted. And Haley asks why not kill Aya, and he says that they have history. She asks if they had a thing, and we finally find out in this episode what happened between Elijah and Aya, because as we know, there's been this thing between them. I mean, we don't really know what it was. We just knew that they have had history, and what that history was, we finally find out in this episode, and I'm very happy that we did, because I knew that these two had some sort of a future, and that there was something that happened between them. I did not think it was what we were going to find out in this episode. What we found out, I think, is a lot more interesting than I thought. Definitely, I really like this here. Basically, Elijah describes her as a fierce intellect. He invited her to an immortal life. He says he cared for her deeply. They created the Strix together, we find out. And he says then his father came, brought a small army, and laid them to waste, and they had to run. Of course, we know how Michael is. He obviously corrupted it. He says Aya wouldn't come with him, and Tristan ended up saving her, and they corrupted the Strix into the savage, ignorant group it is today. And basically, Michael's the reason. Again, it's all because of Michael, and I like finding this out, that they were the ones that created the Strix. The Strix was not supposed to be the way it was, and it just makes it a lot more interesting. It really shows why Aya and Elijah won't just kill each other, because they have history, and they're not going to kill someone that I think they still care about. And he says, Aya never forgave him. He says he hasn't forgotten himself either, and that's why they won't kill each other, because they just have these unresolved feelings that they just can't bring themselves to do it. And Haley asks how he plans to keep her distracted, and that's also why I think, has more power over Elijah, because he's not part of the Strix. He left the Strix. She's continued the Strix with Tristan. They're a lot more capable of a lot more things, and she hasn't forgiven him for what he's done. So she will kill him if she has to. He just won't kill her because, he understands why she's upset with him. So it's a very complicated situation, and I really like that. And he says that basically, he says, Haley asks how he plans to keep her distracted. He says, a little salt in an old wound, and walks out. The witches aren't having luck channeling and take a break. Davina waits till they leave and sits back by Arian's body. She says she died in New Orleans, even though she's not from there, and she consecrates her so she can have peace. And when she touches her head to spread the oil, she gets all the memories, including the weapon and her death, at Elijah's hands. And basically, Cami, which I thought that was very interesting that we found this out, that she knows now what happened to Arian and the way that she can do that. I mean, I don't really think we've seen that before. So Cami tells Klaus to calm down, count to 10. He says she endangered his family, and he says she knows what he's capable of. She mocks him and says she will as soon as he gives back what's hers. He says she won't tolerate this behavior from her and says she'll end up dead. She says his ex murdered her and will pay for it, and basically, she says she needs the dark objects, and Klaus slides the case across the line. So he'll retrieve her toys, but keep the barrier up until he gets back. And Aya comes, and basically, again, things are just very rough between these two. There's a lot of really interesting conflict here, and I like that. So Aya comes to talk to the Strix. Elijah lurks outside. Aya says they must get the weapons, and then Elijah walks in and says it's wonderful to see them, and says Aya looks comfortable in charge where Tristan was. He says you can't be Lair without his consent, and calls himself a founding father, and says he chooses the leader. And I just really like this conflict here. Knowing that they created the Strix together made this a lot more interesting, because it really showed that either of them could have power here. I mean, Elijah was the one that started. Elijah was the one that introduced her to all this stuff. So she really has no right to shun him away and take over herself. Now that Tristan's gone, I think it would make sense if Elijah and Aya work together. It's just they really can't, because it's just too much history between them that is unresolved, and they can't really work together. But I really like the scenes between Elijah and Aya. Honestly, probably my favorite scene in this episode was the conflict between these two, because they just made it so much more interesting, I have to say. And he says he has an excellent candidate in mind. He says he's taking back what he is, what is his, and he asks if anyone objects and says they follow him, he returns them to greatness. Marcel mocks him. Elijah shushes him and says the grown-ups are talking. He pulls out the charter of the Strix, says it's his duty to uphold the tenets, then reads off in the absence of a worthy leader. Complete dominion goes to him, and Aya says if he wants to stake this absurd claim, she invokes the right of Ludum Regale, and Elijah says it's a game of things, and Aya says he can't invoke one part of the charter without the other, and says she helped write it. She says it's a consent of strength and cunning. She challenges him to a duel, says whoever holds the charter, the stroke of midnight, is the new leader. She asks if he accepts. He stares her down, and basically, I really just love the scene. Seeing that they're gonna, fight was just really incredible. So Davina lights a candle, and ours fluid into the cauldron that sizzles. She chants, the candle flares. She's in Klaus's house and sees him packing a box full of objects. He can't see her. She watches him cram things in boxes. And I thought that was interesting that she's watching Klaus. And, she really has no idea what's going on there. We know at some point she is going to meet up with Klaus, and they definitely are going to reunite. And I think he is going to convince her to leave the Strix and go with him, but it's definitely going to be a while. I mean, how can she really forgive Klaus for everything he's done, really? There's a lot of unresolved history between those two, and that's a lot of the reason why things aren't really good between Davina and Klaus right now. So Haley comes in, shushes him before he wakes Hope, and she says that she's upset, and Cami stole her favorite toy to get back at him. She says be quiet, and Klaus says add it to the long list of grievances against him. Haley says she knows he's mad at Cami, but she says she's not in her right mind, and I agree with Haley that even though Cami, he's mad at her, she has a point. I mean, this was her family stuff, and if he's going to take her family stuff, she's going to take his. And yes, two wrongs don't make a right, but in this situation, it makes sense. I mean, that's the thing that's going to get Klaus upset. That's the thing that's going to get Klaus to, that's the thing that's going to get Klaus to want to, get the stuff back. And that's the thing that's getting Klaus to really think about it. So definitely makes sense why Klaus, why Cami took his stuff. Because if she didn't, I don't really think Klaus would do anything about her dark objects. So he says she's tucked behind a barrier spell in the city of the dead, taunting him. And as Davina comes back to herself, another witch is there, as if she has something to share. And Marcel says the oldest organization of vampires settles things like a playground disagreement. And I and Elijah head into the cage of the church gym. They each take off their jackets. Elijah unbuttons his sleeve and says, "Come get the charter." And you can really tell this is going to be crazy. I mean, you know these two are going to fight to the death, and I couldn't wait for that. So Cami paces, wondering why Klaus is taking so long. Vincent says that she poked a dangerous bear, and he says Klaus let her in his life because he trusted her. She says that that girl is dead, basically. That girl's completely dead, and that he can't really trust her anymore. And I don't think she's saying that, Cami human is dead. She's saying that the weak Cami is dead. Now she can retaliate. Now she can really show how she feels about Klaus, and she can do things that she never really did before. So that innocent side of her is dead, pretty much. And I really think that's what she's saying. So I think that's what it's all about. And Davina says if she knew something, she would tell them. The other witch wonders if Davina has leftover loyalties to the vampires, and Davina pushes back on her. The other witch says that Aya won't keep her promises and that she shouldn't trust Aya. And I do agree with that Aya is not going to give Davina what she wants. Davina just thinks she can trust Aya because Aya's telling her everything she wants to hear. And Davina says that she has the spell she needs and just needs power. The other girl says her family was poor and her mother's sick when she became a sister. She says she wanted to help her family, and Aya made her a lot of promises. She says she did all that she asked, and then her own mother hated her, and Aya just isn't going to keep her promises. It's not a good idea for Davina to go with the Strix. And she tells Davina that real magic, like they practice, will change you. She tells Davina that she will save that person that she loves, and then it will all end. The other witch says she just wants out of the coven, grabs Davina's head in chance, and she gets the image of the white horse from her head. And basically, you can tell that Davina, I think, is really conflicted. Like, there's a part of her that thinks this is the best thing for her, but then what this girl is saying sounds like the complete opposite of what she wants. So Elijah and Aya fight in the ring. He asks if she's done. She says she won't submit. He has her by the throat. She says, "We will never follow you." He says, "Oh, they all swore loyalty to a serpent." Aya says he's rewriting history and says he ran like a coward and left the Strix to be slaughtered by his mad father. He says he had no choice, and she says you always have a choice. He says he returned the moment his family was safe. He says the wreckage he felt when he thought she was dead was hard. She says Tristan saved them and earned their loyalty, and I really felt this was the time for them to, really just, deal with everything they're dealing with. And he says Tristan was a vulture and usurper. He says he had a twisted crusade, and Aya says Elijah always chooses family above all. She comes in hard, slams him against the barrier, says he's a traitor, she will die before she accepts him as a leader. He grabs her by the throat and says he accepts her ultimatum, and Marcel'S speeds at them both, has the charter. He says, "Catch me if you can, but come midnight, I'm in charge." He takes off with it, and you can tell that Elijah just thinks, he's in charge. I mean, he pretty much thinks, I have this in the bag. Aya's done. I got this. So the other witch lurks in the cemetery nearby as Klaus returns with a case of objects. He notices someone and says the contest ends soon. She cuts off his voice with her magic. His cell now has no service. He calls out for Cami, but he can't be heard. And Elijah sits thinking about his past with Aya and their love, and she shows up as he's toying with a long strand of beads. She takes his drink and downs it. She says, why isn't he concerned that Marcel'S stole the charter? And he says he has his resources on it. And Aya says the Strix will take the charter from Marcel and bring it to her. And I think it's a good question of what she asked. Why isn't he concerned? And because, Elijah wanted it, now Marcel just took it. And we know that, of course, Marcel isn't really working with him. I think that, but Elijah obviously can't tell her, hey, Marcel's not really working with you guys and he's just a spy. He obviously can't really tell her that because, that would be ruining everything. But that's part of the reason why he's not really worried. So Elijah says Marcel takes refuge in a home neither of them can enter, and Aya says he could have ended her but didn't. She asks why, and he says if the opportunity comes up again, he'll finish the task. And I definitely think that this season is not ending without Elijah killing Aya. It's gonna happen. He's going to be able to deal with everything she put him through, and it's gonna happen. I don't know when, but she's not getting alive without her killing him. I know it's gonna happen. So at the cemetery, Vincent watches the mobile of bones moving and says that something isn't right. He tells her to stay. The witch comes out and tells Klaus that Cami can't hear him and will be dead soon. He goes for her, but she's gone. She says that she's a Strix coven witch. She says they came for the weapon. He comes at her again, but he can't get to her. She magics him up and into the air, then snaps his neck. He falls down. Cami runs out. Vincent hushes her and says they're not alone. It's a witch. The sisters are there, and Vincent says the hallowed ground and belongs to the 9 covens of New Orleans. They use magic on him. Vincent tells Cami to run now. She's gone, and Vincent faces the Strix witches, and she hears footsteps. The witch is there. She tells Cami to hand it over and cracks her ankle. Cami screams. She says she has a high tolerance for pain and attacks again. Cami lets go of the horse and it skips over to the witch. Cami grabs one of her dark objects and throws it. The witch screams, then pants, and Cami comes to, sees she's alone, and the witch is gone with the weapon, and basically Cami's now realizing that this is really bad what she did, because now the witches have the weapon, and now, one, it's not her problem, because Klaus really can't come at her for it, but two, the witches now have it, and we don't really know what they're going to do with it. So Elijah calls Marcel, says, come out and give me the charter. Marcel says no, he has 3 minutes. He says, good luck finding me, but Elijah's outside the window. Elijah says, when your sister is a witch, tracking your enemies is no problem. Elijah threatens to burn it down, then the Strix is also assemble. Elijah tells him to come outside now. A woman invites Elijah inside. Aya's stuck outside. Elijah looks around for Marcel. Klaus rages at Cami and says, shut up and let Vincent track the witch. He says he can't concentrate with their bickering. Klaus tells Cami to stay put, and I agree with Cami that Klaus needs to this isn't really her problem. I mean, the witch took it, so he needs to just let Vincent do what he needs to do. So Elijah comes out. Aya says the time has run out. Marcel says he wins. Elijah says it's evasion, not a contest. And Marcel says aspiring leaders must face off in a contest that requires cunning because they need more brains than brawn. And he says he knows this town and is charming enough to be invited everywhere. Elijah grabs him and is ready to rip his heart out, but both Marcel and Aya agree if he breaks the charter, no one will follow him. And that basically, it's not a good idea. So Marcel says he's watched the Michaelsons his whole life. He said he drove them out of New Orleans in the first place, made the city strong, and that's true. I mean, he's the one that introduced them to New Orleans, if you remember. I mean, he told them about it. They got there because of him. That he really is the best person to lead because he's the one that's been in New Orleans the longest. And basically, he says that, he says it's his city because he took it, and that's what a leader does. He jumps atop a car, says this prophecy will happen here if it happens at all. He says if they're going to stop it from happening, he will stop it here. Aya says that they will stand Marcel and fight to live. Aya says the new leader of the Strix is Marcel Gerard, and Elijah walks away disgusted. Klaus rants at Cami, we never hear Marcel's last name, so that was interesting. Klaus rants at Cami for the risk of her life. She said the vulnerability he feels right now is what she feels all the time. She says she took a calculated risk and it blew up and she's sorry. She says they wouldn't be here if he had just listened. She says he's been manipulating for 1,000 years and now it's her turn. I really do agree with Cami that it's her turn to be manipulated. I mean, he's been manipulating everyone. Now she gets to do it. I mean, she doesn't not get to do it now. She's a vampire. And he yells at her to answer the phone. Davina calls Cami to warn her, but Cami says she has to. Davina says the witch isn't working for the Strix. It's Aurora that she's working for. And the witch hands Aurora the trinkets. She asks her to end her servitude to the Strix. Aurora agrees and drains her. And obviously, this is a real problem. Elijah goes to Marcel's lair. He pours them drinks. He asks why Elijah punched his head into his chest, and Elijah says he was in character, and he says was a master of horns, toast Marcel as the new Grand Poobah, and I love this because we know that Marcel is loyal to them. He's not really working. Marcel says the court will become a war zone if the Sireline War keeps on. Elijah says at least now he has an army and tells Marcel to keep these clowns in line, and I love it. I love seeing that Marcel's not really working with the Strix. He's actually working with Elijah. It's just awesome. I love that. So Arian is there. She speaks to Davina. She says she's with Cole and the Ancestor. She says things are not going well for Cole and says Davina is the only one who can help him. She says the Coven's power can save Cole, but the magic is dark and comes at a price. She said if she loses him, Cole's fate will be far worse than death, and that's obviously something that Davina is not ready to handle. And Klaus delivers the dark objects to Cami. Says he killed many people or far less than this. She asks if she should thank him for not killing her. She says she will not live in fear of anyone ever again. He walks off but stops and says he could have trusted him. He leaves mad. Aya tells Marcel he has no idea where to begin, and he says she's been running New Orleans for a long time. Aya says the Strix are of one sideline, now have a leader of another sideline. She asks how he faces that threat. He says you need many advisors as a leader, and says you seem to have advice. Aya says that they have a contingency plan, and that's why she needs Davina. She says they can eradicate their sire link, and says Davina will listen to Marcel. She says free of their sires, they can live their own lives. She asks if it'll help, and obviously he doesn't really plan on helping her. He plans on basically doing what Marcel's telling him to do. And I like that he's allying with not Marcel, what Elijah's telling me to do. I think it's good that Marcel's allying with Elijah because he's someone good to stick by. I mean, Elijah, he has reasons to be mad at Aya, and I think Marcel knows that. Marcel's been loyal to them, and it wouldn't make sense for him to suddenly just turn their back on him. It would make sense for him to stick with them. So, basically, we see Elijah finds Klaus, who says Freya still hasn't found the witch. Klaus says Aurora's involvement changes everything. They wonder which of them she'll try to kill first. Elijah says he broke her mind. Klaus broke her heart, and basically, Klaus says that they are now a threat to their loved ones and says he loathes irony. Aurora has a woodwork, and again, like I said to you guys in the mid-season premiere, things are going to get worse before they get better, definitely. I mean, now they have Cami against them. Now they have Aya against them. I mean, they have a lot more people against them. And Aurora has a woodworker tinkering with a wooden toy. He's made 6 bullets from it. He asks what animal do you have with wooden bullets. She says, not an animal, a monster, an entire family of them. You know that Aurora is going after them, and that's how the episode ends. And holy shit, what an episode. I mean, there was a lot that happened here. A lot of really great stuff happened here. But Aurora is definitely going after the Michaelsons, and it's going to get very bloody. And I could definitely see things getting really crazy on that end. I mean, we know how powerful Aurora really is, and knowing what she can do, going after them like that, it's really gonna get crazy. I mean, with wooden bullets like we saw in the Vampire Diaries, that's what killed. We knew that wooden bullets killed them, obviously, but things are really gonna get crazy. It looks like next week they are gonna go try to kill Aurora, and if she dies next week, I think it would make sense, but at the same time, it seems like they're setting her up to be the big villain of the season, but also Aya, and like I said, I don't think Elijah is ending the season without killing Aya. She's gonna die, I don't know when, but one of them, either Elijah or Marcel, they're gonna kill her, and even, I think Marcel would do it if the fact that, you know, he's running the Strix and everything, he doesn't really trust her, he just wants to make her think that. I think Marcel's doing a very good job of staying in character, but at some point, she's gonna have to realize that he's not really working with them. At some point, she's gonna realize that. We'll have to see what happens there, though. As far as Cami goes, Cami, I think, has reasons to be upset with Klaus. I mean, he's, like she said, always had this newfound power, and now she can use her power against him, and it's just, she has a lot more power than she ever did before, and it makes sense why Cami would act the way she would around Klaus. Definitely, that makes sense. I think she has a reason to be, acting the way she is, and I understand that. Definitely, it definitely makes sense that she would do that. Davina, what is going to happen with Davina? I mean, it's clear that she is working with the Strix, but at the same time, I don't think she realizes that working with the Strix is not the best thing. But now that Marcel's running it, I definitely feel that Marcel's going to try and convince her to get out of it, because obviously Marcel knows it's not a good idea for her to stay with the Strix. He just knows it's not really the best idea for her to do that. So we'll have to see what happens, because that definitely is going to get very interesting. But honestly, guys, that's really all I have to say. I know this was a shorter review, but that's really all I have to say about this episode. I really did love this episode, I have to say. Definitely, obviously, a really great episode. It's going to get crazy next week. I know things are about to get insane on this show. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but things are definitely about to get crazy. And let me know if you guys saw this episode. Like I said, I don't have as much to say about this episode, but I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for Girl Meets World. I know you guys want Girl Meets World. It's coming in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.